opportunity that the leading headline or paragraph introducing this report comments about the building activities continuing to grow each year, which is a positive indicator for the local economy and developer confidence. I've actually been approached by a couple of builders in regard to going forward, and the graphs, the database on these graphs tells us that it isn't perhaps as good as, in fact it's not as good as what we've had in the past singularly as a Corral Shire Council. And the question, with no inference, is that the adopted situation, the adopted budget from July 1 on, had an increase in the council's developer charges, which I've got the numbers here, that's 30% higher than the four other neighbouring shires. And I was wondering if that was something that should be looked at in the future going forward, Mr. General Manager, Acting General Manager, if that's something, or Mr. Parker. Because in the inference of what I'm suggesting and bringing forward to council is builders are concerned about the opportunity developers in the head charges. Thank you.
Councillor Longmire, it remiss me, we're dealing with 8.1 and 8.2, if you're happy to deal with them in the block, and would you mind moving that recommendation?
If you'd like me to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire.
That's fine.
Do we have a second for that? Councillor Neagle?
Just thank you, Mr Mayor. I will note the comments made and we will address the next review of fees and charges.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Kennedy.
Backing up Mr Longmire there, you all know that I'm a builder, but I've been actually approached by a few people now who are looking at doing subdivisions, especially in Mulwala, and they're really asked me how come we're so much dearer than all the rest of the shires around here for our headworks charges and that, and they're sort of, you look at the growth even in there, like Mulwala's only gone up in the last few statements, how much things have been, Corra's gone backwards in people who live here and sort of thing. I think it's we've got to sort of encourage people to invest in our shires. With it's hard to put it, like people are looking at it there and saying, oh, well, the charges, it's not worth them doing the land's too dear. By the time they start a bit, they don't make any money out of it. And we're stopping people from coming and living in our shire, which is I've been approached. Like a lot of times, people want to build in Mulwala and Corra, and they say no, we can't afford to build in there because the land's too high, and they go and build in Tocumwal. I've probably built 8 homes in Tocumwal in the last 6 months because of people won't invest. How long they, especially when the thing come up about how long having that, over there, all the problems they had over there, people they were going to move to How Long because it was cheaper in How Long because the headworks charges are a third of what we pay in Mulwala and Kiowa. We just got to look at the investment side of encouraging people to come into our town. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. For a response, just in general on fees and charges, especially around development, certain amounts of those fees are set by the state government. Councils don't have an option in some of them. Where we do have an option, we need to look at it, particularly our development contributions. A lot of the development contribution variations are purely related to the topography of the town. Mulwala, unfortunately, is extremely flat, hence a lot more pump stations, etc. So it has a higher charge associated with it. As opposed to How Long, where it's on a slight rise, we can actually get sewerage to work without a large number of pump stations. So I think this item may be one for a workshop in the future to go through.
Thank you. Councillor
Longmire. I agree with the Acting General Manager. Victorian Government, I believe, subsidises works a lot more than certainly the New South Wales State Government. The understanding of that, am I correct in suggesting that? Because people that have built houses that live in Corra and work in vicinity have built houses in Wagonian for the reasons that we're talking about. So it's something just to be aware of, and I think it's something we can look at going forward, and certainly that opportunity presents itself today in this report.
Councillor
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a further comment that we probably also need to consider the availability of land, and talking with people over the weekend that Corra was the topic of conversation, is that there's very little land available for development, and that is something else that we need to probably consider as part of that whole picture. Is not just the cost of it, but also the availability of it.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. We've got that opportunity coming up next year when we revise the LEP to ensure that we do have more residential land zoned councillors as an abridged version of the meeting held between council and the Howland Community.
I'm sorry, just Councillor Longley.
8.2, you've done?
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
8.1 and 8.2.
Right, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor.
8.3.
Sorry. We
Public
did 8.1
hearings
and 8.2 as a
8.2.
block? Yep. I'm sorry.
Back through you, through you, Ms. Mayor. Yeah, it's an abridged version of the minutes purely because the 4 pages of notes I had were highly repetitive, and I've presented it as it is. It covers the main content of the discussion on the day, purely for information of council.
Any questions on that, councillors, before we move to 8.4?
Yes, it's something that I've overlooked there too. I had a meeting with the proprietors of, from the wrong one, that's the committee. Yep, sorry. Yep.
Okay, 8.4.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The flood study reports have been completed. There were relatively minor amendments made to the drafts that were put on public display. They're now available. The full reports are available online at the council's website for the public, but basically that stage of the project now done and dusted, and it's up to council now to adopt those reports.
Councillors, I'd have to say that they've done a fantastic job in delivering those reports timely. They had a big major deadline to make, and today's basically the end of that race. So congratulations to Penny Craig and those involved in that flood study. Councillor Longley.
Yeah, I'd like to move the adoption of the report with a comment, if that's available.
Thank you, Councillor Longley. We've got a second of Councillor Law. I'll just check with the minute taken that. That was moved by Councillor Longley and seconded by Councillor Law.
I missed the adoption of the minutes of the community meeting items for 8.3.
It was just for information.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
That was really much the news.
Checking.
Yeah, and then 4, we're right at 4.
Yes, we've got that. That was the Longmire and Miller.
Yes.
Thanks.
Councillor Longley.
Just a question. Am I right in saying that the study commenced a fair while ago? And it's the same group that came through and delivered the goods. Is that how it was, or was there a change in the process?
There was a change in the process. The study started, and unfortunately the guy that was leading the study passed away.
Okay.
So there was a little break, and they had to get another, well, the same firm took it over, but council brought in Penny Craig, previous engineer, to follow through the flood study, and Penny really put the wheels in motion, and
It's been achieved.
sorry,
It's been achieved.
it's been
absolutely.
achieved.
Yeah, well done.
Today's adoption finalises that part of the study.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. So any further questions on that study? If not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. 8.5.
Yeah, we have, as with all tenders, been publicly advertised. We've received tender submissions and carried out an assessment in accordance with the methodology in our paper here, with the recommendation that Men's Plant from Narandra are awarded the contract. So I've got to do.
Moved by Councillor Legal, seconded by Councillor Longley. Was that a question, any comment there, Councillor Legal, or no? Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. 8.6.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is runs to allow us to finalise the flood damage repair work in accordance with the requirements of the National Disaster Recovery Funding. Again, same methodology, a reasonable number of submissions, and we have a recommendation there.
We have a move for that recommendation, Councillor. Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Whitechurch.
Question?
Question, Councillor
Any
Longley.
clarity? Mr. Gore, in regard to, is there a time frame on this work to be done?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes there is. I'm not sure exact time frame because it depends on the date of funding approval, which I don't know. Generally it's a 2-year period.
Okay.
So
just a comment in relation to the tendering process there, and there's a couple that have come up. I note that just in the business paper today, and I've mentioned to a couple of councillors off the record, just for interest, we've got a couple of local businesses that have got tenders in there. There's I think $2.3 or $4 million worth of works been awarded. I'm obviously fully aware of how the tender process works, but there seems a lot of money to where guys have finished second, local companies that's going out of town. I know in our business we've been a beneficiary of getting work out of town. Just the perception when they finish a second, in particular that one there, we've got a local contractor that's finished second in the process for obvious reasons. Just something to consider.
Yeah, that's a good question, Councillor Whitechurch. Could we just have a bit of a briefing on that tender assessment ranking and how important that is to the outcome of that result?
With the ranking, it's certainly price is one of the components of any tender ranking that we achieve. In this case, you'll see the price was judged as being 40%, purely because we knew we would get competent contractors, so the majority of the issue was going to come down to price. We then assessed up against the other criteria of capability, experience, management systems, etc., and local benefit. And that local benefit's 10%. In assessing that, without going into full detail, that generally gives local businesses that are within a reasonable margin of achieving the project a small boost to get them over the line in terms of scoring. In this case, the price difference and other factors weren't enough for that local factor to push them over the line. But we do consider that, and it's something I've asked our staff to make sure we do continue to consider. Keep in mind, when a business from outside comes here, depending on their setup, they do accommodate staff in the region, they do buy their fuel here, the staff buy their food, they go to the local hotels, etc. So there's still a local benefit from people outside the region.
Further, Councillor Regan.
Yeah, just a quick point of clarification from Mr. Gore. There's a whole range of different gravel levels, and is that due to the amount of deterioration caused by the flood, or the ranking of the road, or a combination of both?
There's a range of repairs proposed purely because of those factors, and it'll come down to where the road is as well, which is part of the road ranking, how many farms it services, a whole range of factors. It's really difficult to say what percentage of sits where in terms of work. These tables were developed by our staff in conjunction with, in discussion with RMS. It's just one way of identifying the works and how we go about it to get a price.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The Longwell sewage treatment works likely going to tender. Another piece of upgrade works that will help with odour issues and management of that facility. Again, limited number of tenders received purely because of the work type and the availability of contractors. Similar assessment process is carried through. Up to you, there's a recommendation there.
So we move the councillors. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Law. Any questions or comments? Councillor
Just a quick one, time frame for that work, Mr. Bull?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. There are, in general, we've set project time frames that aim to be completed around the end of March from memory. But with all of these, we're aiming for completion by the end of the financial year.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor. This one's for the replacement of the pumps, the intake down at pricing was substantially higher than the others and were no longer considered once we did the evaluation work. You have a recommendation there, councillors?
Moved by councillor Wright and seconded by councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments, councillors? To you, Peter, I guess obviously for the tender process, the price is withheld.
Yes. Because we're in open council, there's a lot of information that we can't provide because it's commercially in confidence in these reports. As such, pricing is considered in this one. It hasn't been made clear other than it was set at 60%. The evaluation method for both of these projects was via a third party who are experts in the field of design and construction of those projects. We've applied as much rigour as physically possible to these to come with the outcome we have.
Any further questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor.
That's a revolving door.
On this item, it's a development application to put a substantial shed on a property. The plans submitted request that the shed be sited adjacent to the boundaries. Under the planning rules that we have in place, normally this is a development application that can be refused because it just doesn't comply. The second option we have for council is that it can be approved, but with the standard condition of 5 metre spacing from the boundary, and we put all our normal conditions into it then. Or option 3, council can elect to allow 1.5 metre setback from boundaries, which is generally in regards to what's going around the area. So that's a decision of council required because of that conflict for our staff to determine which option they would like to proceed with.
Moved by councillor Kennedy.
There's no move, we're picking option. I just want to speak on one of the options.
Yeah, I'll just move second so we can discuss.
We don't, there's nothing to move,
There's nothing to move.
council's determination.
It's for our determination.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. Councillor.
Like, I went out and had a look, and out Wanani Road, they're all big acre blocks or bigger. Some of them have built a few houses out there over the years, and obviously Shire is doing the right thing here, bringing it to us to say it's 5 metres, it's got to be, which years ago it was only a metre or it's 1200, it's changed, chopped and changed over the years. Like, I reckon we should, well, my theory is that we should probably approve option 3, like let them build, because they're big, open, they're big blocks, they're big sheds, everyone's got them out there, and it's just, his neighbour's got one that's only a metre off the fence on the other side, so it's sort of like, I think that the option 3 is what I recommend that we should do, after going here, and I deal with DAs all the time with Shire and that, and like the 1.5, I think that's a good setback. Like, I think 5 metres, that's too much. Like, he's complying with 5 metres from the back, but 5 metres on the side, it's going to squash his shed down, what they really want to build. So I think that option 3 is the option that I would prefer.
Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I also support Councillor Kennedy. I did have a look the other day myself, and they are big blocks down there, and I think that would be good 1.5.
So, approximately how big would the block be?
They're over an acre.
They're over an acre?
Yeah. They're big blocks. All the blocks there are 8 blocks along there.
Councillor White.
If you're willing to take a movement, a direction on this, I'm prepared to do it.
In a second, if I may take one more comment, do you have one, Councillor Wells?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that where this is, it's at the end of Wanani Road too. It's at the lower end of the Wanani Road towards where there's no housing.
Councillor Meagle?
I think we just need to be careful. As soon as we start making adjustments or assessments, you open Pandora's box, and next minute everybody wants 1.5 metres on whatever side. Whilst the size of the blocks has a relevance, I get that. Maybe there needs to be an amendment then to our current regulations in terms that if the blocks are over a certain size, then they could be closer. But at the moment, they stand at 5 metres, and it's a blanket rule. Is that correct, Mr. Wall?
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's a blanket rule. My concern is that if you have a blanket rule and you start making exceptions for a blanket rule, then all of a sudden the exception becomes the rule, and what's the point of having the rule in the first place? So just being mindful that whilst the argument, there's a valid point for having it at 1.5, we need to be careful that if we're going down this path, when we start allowing 1.5s here, next minute someone will be wanting 1.5s where it's not appropriate, and we've already set the precedent.
Thank you, Councillor Meagle. Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, like, with option 2, you know, saying there, what, back to 5 metres or whatever, that's fine. But there's been advertised, no one complained actually about it. Like, I'm thinking, do we put it back to the owner saying, if he can get a letter from his next door neighbour saying they're quite happy with it being there, does that have any weight on the decision, Mr. Gould, is it?
That's a decision of council to make.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'll put it to the council. Like, do we put a clause on it to say if he contacts his neighbours and say, you give us written permission to build within that easement, is that something we look at doing as well? Like, that's another option I was sort of thinking.
Councillor Kennedy, it is, it's been brought up, it's a unique situation in that you've already commented that the neighbour's shed is 1 metre from...
1.1 metres, I think, on the boundary, on the north boundary, yeah.
And this applicant's requiring 1.5. It's a bit of a case-by-case study in this case where laws have changed, obviously, and I think it'd be nice to have that flexibility to go with something such as this. I agree with Councillor Meagle in that, you know, you set a base size, and maybe that needs looking at, so to give us more opportunity. But I think in this case, we do need the flexibility. It's unique. Councillor Law.
It's a 1 acre block. What else is on the block? Is it a home block?
A house, and it says in there, it's a house.
1 acre's a big block for a house and a shed. I can't see why it can't be 5 metres.
There's a house and already a pool on there. Dwelling out buildings and in-ground pool.
Councillor, I'm guessing what happens is when you put a shed in a space and you leave it out 5 metres, the area to that 5 metre area to the side becomes pretty much dead to the block. That's why they tend to try and pull them over a bit closer, because it usually ends up dead area. Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll ask Councillor Longmire to...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that option 2 be the suggestion of council.
Option 2 or 3?
Sorry, 3. Sorry, I stand correct.
Okay.
Option 3. The reasons I speak on that situation is because there hasn't been the submissions, there hasn't been any disregard for the opportunity. No doubt it's been on display for the area down there under the guidelines for the people to have a look at. I too concur with the fact that that area between the fence and the shed becomes a dead spot where you chuck stuff and all the rest of it, and becomes overloaded with grass and all the rest of it. So I'm willing to be prepared to move the option 3 and go forward with it.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Do we have a second to that? Councillor Wales? I'll take that, Councillor Wales. Any further comments? If not, I'll put it all in favour. It's a show of hands, please. All in favour?
So that's everyone?
Yes, it is. Against? Carried. We'll just give Christy a minute there. Noted number, sorry, we'll just wait for Councillor Thomas. I've got a notice of motion, we're dealing with notice of motion now. Number 9, questions without notice. I have a rescission motion here. If you don't mind, I'll just have a quick read. motion been brought forward, and it's not in accordance with the meeting code of conduct of Federation Council. I don't deem it to, the actual motion in question has been acted. I don't deem it important enough to hear it, so therefore I won't. Thank you. So now we'll move on to any other reports from committees.
Did we get a motion to bring it forward?
No, we didn't. I didn't accept it, Lenny.
No, okay, yeah.
Okay, reports from committees, Neil. Reports from delegate, number 11. None. Any correspondence requiring further council action? No items. Confidential items, we have number 13. 13.1, confidential how long industrial estate process.
Mr Mayor, I omitted to declare an interest in that. I met with the General Manager and Chief Financial Officer on Friday regarding this project, and I'll just step aside.
Would someone move that we move into suspend standing orders first of all? And move into closed council. Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.